In this lesson, I'm going to break down the complex chord progression and song structure from the song Slowly Growing Deaf from Mr. Bungle's totally insane debut self-titled album from 1991. Just a little warning to people who don't know Mr. Bungle, who might be coming here from some of my other lessons, like my Beach Boys content or Steely Dan content. If you don't know who Mr. Bungle is, there is a certain abrasiveness to the music, but it is very worth it for you to check out this chord progression and learn the amazing things that are in this song. Their first album is 1991. It was the craziest album that had ever come out. It was like some psycho clown metal album, but there were these very advanced chord progressions and really slick production. I recommend, if you haven't heard them, why don't you start with their third album, California, which has more of like this psychedelic Beach Boys exotica type of vibe in a way. My favorite album of theirs is Disco Volante, but that one is absolutely nuts. Yeah, for those who do not know Mr. Bungle, they're a very adventurous, genre-defying group with multiple brilliant songwriters and instrumentalists who throughout their 3-album discography and their primary incarnation, when they made their studio releases between 1991 and 1999, truly have called into question what a musical genre even is and what is possible for a band to pull off. It's very psychedelic, very progressive, but it does not have the same aesthetic that prog music has. There's something very different about these guys. Yeah, the first album is like a total killer psycho clown metal atonal album, but this is one of the more thoughtful songs on there. Not that there's not a lot of thoughtful songs, but it's not quite as juvenile as some of the other things on there. Slowly Growing Deaf. This particular song happened to be written by bassist Trevor Dunn, who's the most learned musician in the group as far as jazz goes. Not that this tune sounds much like jazz, but the chords and harmonic structure are definitely very much informed by advanced jazz harmony. This song is apparently the unannounced first song of a 3-song series in Mr. Bungle songs of all songs that Trevor wrote about sleep. The other 2 are on Disco Volante. You have Carry Stress in the Jaw, which is called Sleep Part 2 in parentheses, and Phlegmatics, which is Sleep Part 3, but they never announced which one Sleep 1 was, and I think Trevor announced that somewhere that Slowly Growing Deaf was Sleep Part 1. But anyway, Trevor has a very unique compositional style and harmonic language in his music. It is pretty distinct, and you can hear it in the other songs he writes for Bungle and some of his other great projects like Trio Convulsant and things like that. Very briefly, the best way to help my channel is to join my Patreon, High Castle Conservatory. There's no better way to support what I'm doing here than coming and joining me there. Also, subscribe below, hit the notification bell so you're informed when I release a new video. You can check out my channel's playlist page to find the music, lessons, and content that most interest you. And check out the description below. You can find links to hear and purchase my original projects, I.S.S. and High Castle Teleorchestra. So this chart here is different than my usual chord analysis chart. This song almost defies key categorization, and I'm just going to leave it without me putting Roman numerals, and I'm just going to explain what key I think we're in, where it makes sense. But I didn't want to mark up this whole chart like I usually do with Roman numerals and key changes and things like that. You'll see why. There's kind of an almost atonal aspect to this. Not quite, but it sounds very different than what we're used to. You also can download this chart in the description below. I don't usually give these out on public, but this one I'm going to go ahead and make it available, not just to my patrons, but to everyone, which is a rare thing. I don't usually make my charts available, but you can go ahead and see this song form page where it says each part of the song: intro, verse 1, pre-chorus 1, verse 2, pre-chorus 2, intro 2, prog doo-wop transition, intro 3, video game sound effects, verse 3, pre-chorus 3. Interlude 1, bridge 1, interlude 2, bridge 2, verse 4, transition, bridge 3, pre-chorus, and then final verse. So it's a pretty complex and long song form, to say the least. To get the most out of this lesson, I would suggest following along with the keyboard, because you'll see me playing the voicings below, so you can check it out there and follow along, and I think you'll get the most out of it. You can try a guitar as well, but the keyboard I think will give the most benefit for learning. The point of my lessons is not just here's how to play that song. My lesson is what are the secrets of this song's composition? What are the things that allow it to be such a great composition? I try to really look under the hood and see if I could find the hidden things, even if it's things the composer was doing more intuitively. I try to figure out what exactly it is. This song is quite an anomaly. It contains this funky intro, which quickly dissipates into a moody verse, kind of like this dark ballad infused with these moody jazz chords that are like on these analog synth pads or something like that. A very smooth lead vocal by Patton, who's the singer of this group. The same verse chords become a heavy, almost metal groove on verse 2. It has an odd time signature break that quickly jumps between like doo-wop and then back to the funky part of the song, obscured video game sound effects, noise interludes, very unusual bridges, an intriguing outro that pulls it back together. The song clocks in at a lengthy 6 minutes and almost feels longer because of how intense it really is. The song was released in 1991. There's a certain aesthetic to the type of engineering back in those days that put a lot of high end and punchiness, and you put it on now and it just doesn't quite sound as warm as you would want it to, but it's very clear. The engineering is very clear. It just has this, I don't know what to say, like 90s type of brightness to it. But anyway, let's get into the song. For those of you who know it, if you don't know this song, please go listen to it. I don't even know why you'd be this far in the video if you don't know this song. Go listen to this song. Follow along with my chart, which you can download in the description, and see what's behind it. And then come learn starting here. So it's hard to mimic this funky dun 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 kind of thing that's the first 4 bars, or the first 2 bars, sorry. So it's just 2 bars. Just that funky kind of thing. It's a D7 sharp 9 chord, which is what we sometimes call the Hendrix chord. And what that means is it's a dominant 7 chord, and dominant means a major third, right? But it also has a minor third. Only a dominant could house so much tension, a major and a minor third. So the essence of a dominant 7 sharp 9 is to do a voicing that has the major third, the dominant 7, and then that sharp 9, which is like the minor third. So that's the main voicing, you know. If you heard guitar, let me show you something real quick. It's one of those like dumb bonehead funk voicings which just works so well on guitar, this kind of thing. Yeah, it's a really great voicing on guitar. It just really works well. You have that F sharp, C, F, and then the D on the bottom. But this D7 does not really tell us what key we're in. Funk can be very ambiguous. I mean, D7 is usually in some kind of G. G major, G minor. We don't know where we're going though. So yeah, it sounds better on the guitar, which is how it's played on this. And then the bass line is doing what is actually one of the first themes of the song. It goes. So all that is doing like a minor triad starting on the minor third. So if we're in D7, first note is minor third of F, D, then A is the 5 of D7. So all we have is this. Then D7 sharp 9 over the F, E flat 7 sharp 9 over F sharp. It's very dissonant. And on the piano, it sounds more dissonant than on the guitar. On the guitar, it sounds more funky. So just 2 bars of funk, and it immediately drops out that funk vibe and goes to this sort of minor key, dark ballad thing. Kind of this mysterious thing. A really cool vocal melody comes in, which is the main theme of the song, really. I told you our first theme was that bass. This is the real theme of the song. It's... it's not obvious what key it's in except for the first part, A minor. Let me just play the first 4 chords of the verse. Repeat. Okay, so the very first chord is A minor add 9. You could make a great case that we are in A minor now. It might be the closest thing we have to home in this whole song. But that D7 from the intro did not materialize into us modulating to G minor or G major, but funk chords can be very ambiguous. You know, maybe A minor to D7 is, you know, A minor is the verse and D7 is the intro. Maybe it's a 2, 5, and G. But it doesn't even need to be defined in that way at this point, especially considering this set of chords of the verse. So the first chord you have is A minor, add 9, and 9 just is the same note as 2, but up an octave, usually. You can call it add 2, I like to call it add 9. Jazz likes to add minor 7s to everything, but it gets to sounding a little too, not cheesy, maybe schmaltzy sometimes. That sometimes, I know Bernard Herrmann does it a lot, the film composer, but you just add a 9 instead of a 9 and a 7. That's why you have to say add 9. If I were to say just A minor 9, it means minor 7 also. But if I say A minor, add 9, so there's a nice voicing where you just have the A minor and then the 9 above it. But another nice voicing is to tuck it down an octave, which is exactly what they do here. And they're playing it on some kind of analog synth pad or synth pad. We used to call it mood chords, because if you listen in the background of this album, there are just these things doing these mood kind of synth chords a lot of the time, especially these ambient parts. So the very first chord after the intro, which goes like this, so it's not just A minor, it's A minor add 9. So like I said, it seems like we're in A minor on this verse, but listen to the second chord. That is very Trevor Dunn, and it's also some, I don't know which 20th century classical composer, Messiaen, or there's probably a bunch of them, but it really has this, if we thought we were in A minor, we're really starting to question where we are now. But there's two ways you could think of this chord. F sharp major with C in the bass. I also hear it somehow up in this, I can't tell, you can't hear what the chords are exactly playing, so I don't know if there's a sharp 11, which is the same thing as flat 5, or if just that C in the bass is enough to carry that. So you could think about this as basically an F sharp over C, but let's remember the rule of tritone substitution, where you can go a tritone away and consider what this chord would be from there. And in this case, we have kind of like a C7 flat 9 sharp 11. There isn't happen to be a major third, but listen to the difference between C7 flat 9 sharp 11. If I just take away the major third, it still has the same sound. So you could call it either. We're in A minor, and I can't find a direct justification for this chord. So now if you find a chord change where you're confused, why don't you look at the next couple of chords and see if it circles around. So we have A minor add 9, F sharp over C, there may be a sharp 11 in there too, or it might just be in the bass, B7 flat 9, check this one out, E7, which is 5, right? And then it does a repeat to A minor. So we've got something. Now, if we had gotten hung up on that second chord, that F sharp over C, we would have been like, I don't know where we are. So they take a diversion, and somehow we looked ahead here and we see E7. So we know that A minor, add 9, and E7 is 5 of that, although he's doing some alterations, which are really cool sounding. So the best way you can think about this is in A minor, then it's going to F sharp, which is like a 6, and then B7 flat 9 is a 2 dominant, right, of A minor, and then E7 is the 5, but with all those extensions, I mean, geez. Yeah, it's really hard to say. You can boom, 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 boom. It sounds simpler in the bass line until you start adding and then. But this is the Trevor harmonic language, and it really has a unique sound to it. 2 dominant is also not diatonic in minor, this B7 flat 9. But you do hear two dominants a lot in both major and minor. Two dominant is very common. So in a weird way, what this is doing is A minor usually has a 6 of F, but in this case, it's almost like it's pretending we're in A major and doing this 1 6 2 5 where they're all dominants. A, F sharp 7, B7, E7, A major. In major, that's common. That's called rhythm changes from George Gershwin's I Got Rhythm. So I've never seen this done before, and I don't know if Trevor was thinking of it like this, but it's kind of funny that if this was in A major, that this is just a variation of 1 6 2 5 rhythm changes. So, but instead we're in minor. Two dominant in A minor. And let's remember, a dominant 7 flat 9 is pretty much a diminished chord. But it's not a straight diminished chord. And sometimes there's another note in there, but it kind of sounds good like this. And now E7, a standard E7 would be this, but two of the biggest alterations you could do on a dominant 7 chord like E7 would be add a flat 9, and that adds like a diminished sound on top of the E from F. But the second biggest thing you could do to change it would be to add a flat 5, sometimes called a sharp 11. If I wanted a 5 in also, you can add a sharp 11 up there, but sometimes I just like to name it flat 5 so we don't waste any room. We don't have any 5s in the chord, because I could put a 5. And that's a cool sound. You hear that a lot, but I want just this song. I think there's really just a flat 5. So listen to how different that makes this E7 if I go E7 flat 5. Or here's E7 flat 9. But what happens when you do both of them? What we have here is E. I didn't want to call this B flat 7 over E, because I'm thinking of it in that tritone relationship again. If I called this B flat 7 over E, you would have all the right notes, but we're in A minor, temporarily at least. Let's find a way to make that E7. So the tritones are interchangeable. You can consider any dominant chord from its letter name or a tritone away. So this E7 flat 5 flat 9 would be a B flat 7 over E. But I'm going to call it the E7 that it is. So it does those two crazy alterations, which are to do a flat 9 and a flat 5, which basically just gives us a dominant B flat dominant 7 chord. That's the way I remember this. And I don't know if I want to play the B flat here or just let the vocal hit it. I've talked about it before, but you can always have a vocal stand out on its own by just doing a note, or you could have it supported by the chord. See, it's not playing in the chord, just the vocal, unless I put it there. So you always think about that. Do you want a melody supported, or do you want it to be, totally on its own? So you can think about that on a chord by chord basis, and sometimes you got to let the melody have completely its own note and no chord backing it up. So top of the verse, we've got A minor add 9. F sharp over C, B7 flat 9. So yeah, verse just repeats that really moody chord change twice, and it really throws the listener for a loop, I think. If you learn nothing else from that lesson, take those 4 chords and tell me how much more elevated they are than a lot of minor chords we hear. A lot of minor... We hear so many of these generic minor key progressions. Whoops. Yes, and this is really not that. So it does the verse twice, and then it goes to a pre-chorus, which does a classic thing when you're in minor. A lot of times you're trying to move up to the 4, which in the case of A minor is D minor. So in the key of A minor, one of the most common things they do is they do their little verse chord progression, and all of a sudden they turn it major as a way to get to the 4. Then it goes to the 4. So I don't know if that makes sense. One of the most common chord progressions in minor or non-diatonic progressions is to take the 1 minor and just make it major at some point and dominant, which leads us up a 4th to D minor, which is where we're heading in this song anyway. So the pre-chorus switches straight to major after we had been in minor and goes like... Simultaneously speak unbeknown, exile in the inner void, differences, we had no choice. So the pre-chorus sounds like... Simultaneously speak unbeknown, exile the inner voice, differences, we had no choice. We can't seem to find the air to get our message to your head. Okay, shit. Verse 1, I'm going to play the second half of verse 1 after the repeat to show you how it becomes the pre-chorus. So it does that little trick of turning A minor to major and dominant, which leads us to 4 of A minor, which is D minor, and then 5, which is E7, but just doing alterations of it. So let's play it from the second half of verse 1. To my ears the greatest sin. We can't seem to find the air to get our message through your head. So that's verse 2. So the pre-chorus contains the theme that was in the bass intro. Do 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 do. Listen to it. Simultaneously speak unbeknownst. Yeah, I didn't notice that for many years. I used to listen to this album all the time. Simultaneously speak unbeknownst, exile to the inner voice, differences, he had no choice. I almost want to talk about some of the obscure lyrics in this song, but I'm going to put that toward the end because I don't know. I don't really know what this song is fully about. It's so obscure that you really only get all these sort of ways of saying listening and hearing and senses and ears ringing and people hearing but not listening. So we'll get into some of the lyric stuff later, and that might be fun, but I'm not exactly sure what it means, so I'm not going to put it right here in the meat of the lesson. So pre-chorus takes us to that trick where we are in a minor key and we just turn it major and dominant as a way to get to 4. It's just a way to get to 4. And now all this is 5, E7 flat 9 over B. So after the pre-chorus, we have verse 2, and that's essentially the same chords with a little bit of a modification. So after the pre-chorus 1, we have verse 2. It comes in with a little fill. And it comes in with like a metal sound. Chun, 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 chun. The guitars are just chugging away. So the difference is it's the bass isn't going A, C, B, E like it did in the first verse. The A goes down to F sharp. And then it stays on that F sharp even when it does this B7 flat 5. That's a weird lesson. Is that's not even the right power chord, but it's just hanging tight and it just creates a tension. So B7 flat 9. And now it just wants to create an F power chord right there. But remember in the verse, it's an E7 chord. So I'm still calling it that E7 flat 5 over F. Might have a flat 9 in there too. I might not have written that, sorry. Just like in the verse. So that's such a weird chord. This is still functioning like an E7, even though you could easily call it B flat 7 over F, but we can't seem to find the air to get our message through your heads. Repeat. For respiration is sure to keep clear communication obscure, as if I should care, as if you honestly out there. So yeah, after verse 2, it goes straight to that pre-chorus 2 where it turns minor to major, dominant, and uses it as a way to get to 4, which is D minor. But I do want you to note the difference between verse 1 and 2. This bass line, A, C, B, E, but pretty much the same chords in this verse 2 with the metal, but it's totally changing with the chugging. To get our message through your heads, but respiration is sure to keep clear communication obscure. Pre-chorus, as if I should care, as if you honestly out there. Then it goes right into the intro 2, which is longer than the first intro. 3 times. The louder you speak, the more I can hear, the less you can understand. Pound it in to my ears. The greatest sin, be a bit like. Can't do that part. So it goes back to the intro. And remember how short our first intro was? It was just. As the congregation grows. So when it goes back to the second intro after verse pre-chorus 2, it does a longer 3 times total before it goes to this thing I call prog doo-wop transition. So let's go from pre-chorus 2, which is metal. As if I should care, as if you honestly out there. The louder you speak, the more I can hear. The less you can do, pound it in, to my ears. The greatest sin, be a bit like So anyway, we have intro 2, which does a total of 3 times through that funk groove. And after the last time, it goes into this prog doo-wop transition in 5/8, basically. Even this second part is kind of in 5/8. I made it 4/8 plus 6/8, but guess what? 4 plus 6 equals 10. So that would just be 2 bars of 5. But where the chords are changing make it feel like it's 4 and then 6. So as the person writing a chart, you have to decide whether you're just going to write something syncopated or you're really going to try to spell it out. And in this case, I wanted to spell it out. The louder you speak, the more I can hear. 1, 2, 3. The louder you speak, the more I can hear, the less you can under. So it's in 5. The louder you speak, the more I can hear, the less you can under. And then when it goes the less you can understand on that D7, it goes on to this full-on not prog, like rockabilly type of part. Trey's doing these crazy rockabilly blues licks. It's really tight, too. Mike Patton's doing these awesome sudden eruption of doo-wop vocals. It's really, you almost got the feeling after a while Mr. Bungle didn't like being called genre-hopping band. But if you wonder where they got that, listen to this song, this part where it goes into a 5/8 doo-wop part in the middle of this song. That's where they got it from. In California, they tended to have just one song be one kind of style for the most part. So let me play this for you slowly. And like I said, this 4/8 and 6/8 bar on this rockabilly kind of part is probably just 5/8 because really that's 4 plus 6 equals 10, right? 5 plus 5 is 10, and it's just changing where the beats are. But it's going to sound like this. The louder you speak, the more I can hear. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pound it in. Pound it in. Again. My ears the greatest sin. Be a bit like. That's drum fill. That's a little guitar lick or something. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then back to the intro again. It's hard to play that all for me, but let me play it from intro 2, which is... The louder you speak, the more I can hear, the less you can understand. Do-wop, do-do, pound it in, to my ears the greatest sin. Be a bit like Beethoven. Extra hits this time. And the hits feel not quite on a click track. I don't know if they even recorded that album to a click track at all. I can't remember. I think they didn't, perhaps. Danny Heifetz is a very drum machine-like. But these hits they do here... They feel just a little bit like, oh, let's push that last beat back. Or, I can't tell exactly what they're doing, but it's not just da-da-da-da-da. It'd be just really boring like that. But another cool little, thing you can do in your compositions, if you have a main riff, it's like, oh, the third time we do it, let's add some extra hits. So I'm not going to get into the keys of any of that rockabilly part. I still don't know what the hell key we're in. B minor to C minor, and then D7 makes it sound like to G7. It sounds like they're just in like a D blues there for a second, but none of this is really adding up to really sounding much like a key, except D funk and obviously the A minor part of the verse. Yeah, weird song, huh? This song is not what you would expect. I listened to this song for years and years and years before thinking of trying to learn the chords. But anyway, this intro 3 after that prog doo-wop transition does these extra hits. And then there's this section where it's just like it's not in time. It's like, sounds like some Nintendo video game. It might even be Super Mario Brothers, but it seems to be being processed through some effects which make it slightly indistinguishable which game it is. I don't know if it's like backwards, and I don't think it's backwards, but I don't know what, maybe someone knows what it's from, but it's modified in somehow from the original sound off just like the NES or wherever they got it. So it just comes in suddenly after the video game section, after it goes for, I don't know, 10 seconds or 15 seconds, something like that, right into verse 3, which is the same as another metal verse. Paid my lungs so silently, the darkest color of your nose, the crowd will contradict its own audibility, can hear the dialogue for the voice, no one is listening, yet ears are ringing. Boom, ba-cha-cha, boom, boom, cha-cha, boom, ba-cha-cha, boom. So we get to a new section there. I call it Interlude 1, and there is no chords, no music. It's just a beat and noise. So Bungle was definitely prone to doing a lot of noise, especially on their first 2 albums, and this part is the epitome of that, where you have this beat, boom, ba-cha-cha. So it's 8 bars, and then there's this chant, which is the last lyric it said, which was, no one is listening, but ears are ringing. So it's just boom, ba-cha-cha, boom, boom, cha-cha, boom. There's all this noise, boom, boom, cha-cha, chant, ears are ringing, ears are ringing, ears are ringing, ears are ringing. Then in the background, ears are ringing, ears, like a build-up, ears are ringing. In the morning I will see. So yeah, really what this these 2 chords leading into bridge 1 is the same as the pre-chorus, right? Except it's just doing power chords pretty much. So it's really the simultaneously begun, but they're not singing that melody. It took me a while to hear that. That's like, oh, that's the same as the pre-chorus. So ears are ringing, last 4 ears are ringing, ears are ringing, ears are ringing, A is are ringing, ears are ringing, ears are ringing, ears are bridge 1. In the morning I will see when you are trying to say to me as I'm responding to the sing, need not again hear myself think. One. So, the interlude 1, which is just noise and chant of ears are ringing and a beat, that has that sort of pre-chorus echo, which is like a build-up that leads into the bridge. So we haven't been in G minor yet, so it suddenly is in G minor. In the morning I will see when you were trying to say to me as I'm responding to the sick, need not again hear myself think. So, this is another brilliant Trevor Dunn chord progression, because it almost sounds like it's going to be one of those generic, like, and I don't know. And then Mike is doing these kind of almost bluesy melodies over it, which is, I think, a melody Trevor wrote for him to sing. But right after the second chord, which isn't even a normal chord, it's actually an add 9. In the morning I will see when you were trying to say to me. So the wheels fall off real fast of you thinking it's one of those generic descending minor key progressions. Right here. And it finds a sneaky way to modulate up a half step to A flat minor. I never even realized in all the hundreds of times I heard the song that was a modulation. That's how smooth that is. Trevor throws us so off with this chord progression that we just don't even know where we are. That it sounds like it's the same minor we were already in, but it's not. So this is, I don't know how you would even classify any of this. It's like in G minor, and it climbs down to E flat 7, and that becomes the 5 of A flat. And then it looks like it's gonna do another one of those cheesy crawl downs, but no, not again. It's gonna do something weird. 5-1. So great little device there if you're a prog-minded person, or if you're an arranger that wants to add a little breath into your song. Adding a bar of 5-4 between sections is a great way to get a little space. Sometimes you do need an extra beat, and I almost like to think of it as a bar of 1-4. Sometimes you'll hear me at the end say 1. That's the extra beat I'm saying. I could say 5, but anyway, let's go over that bridge one more time. G minor, then G minor at 9, but the bass is descending to F sharp, E7 flat 9 flat 5, which is a chord we've already seen in this song, right? It's the 4th chord of the verse right here. So this is a chord we've seen before. In the morning I will see what you were trying to say to me as I respond into the sink. Need not again hear myself think. One, boom, ba-cha-cha, back to that chant, noise chant, boom, ba-cha-cha, boom, boom, cha-cha, ears are ringing, ears are ringing, ears are ringing, ears are ringing. Now the pre-chorus echo build up, ears are ringing, ears are ringing. The wax beneath my ears has grown, just like the snot inside my nose, my interpretation of distorted conversation. 1. Another bar of 5-4 that they added. So that bridge is out of sight. How does it end up back at G minor? And then it makes it back to an E7 chord, which is like as if we're going back to A minor, which we do. And for verse 4, we finally get back to I will kill for isolation, sacrifice the energy to enjoy the breath of silence. When the blood runs naturally, I've chosen to unplug my nose before the threshold of pain is gone, but out of... Okay. So it goes back to a verse, which is just the same. Then it does this thing I call transition, which is a sexy, soft voice that Mike Patton is so good at. And there's really strange chords behind it, but Mike Patton is very good at just convincing you that there's a basic pentatonic melody going on, and there is. And you would just think that's... But they make it really cool and do A minor, then A minor 7 flat 5 over E flat, then D7 flat 5. Such a cool part. Transition goes... I've chosen to unplug my nose before the threshold of pain is grown. So it goes into a walking jazz part, and I'm totally butchering. Trevor's got a cool line there, and I'm just trying to stay alive here. I have chosen to unplug my nose before the threshold of pain is grown. Double time jazz, but out of society. Keeps doing double time jazz, but it's just going, but out of society. Survive off my soliloquy. So yeah, it goes back to verse 4 and then does this transition. And then it goes to bridge 3. Instead of it being metal this time, it's jazz and halftime. I have chosen to unplug my nose before the threshold of pain is grown. Double time. But out of society, survive off my soliloquy. Pre-chorus 4. Ooh, I can see as... That's one of those shocking parts that Bungle does that just tears your face off for no reason. Patton starts screaming, but it's really just the intro again. But it's just, I don't know, the way it creeps out of this soft kind of jazz part that comes before it just definitely is jarring as hell. I can see. Final verse. Bleeding from nose, throat, and ear. So it unexpectedly ends on a B major 7 chord, and Patton's kind of holding that major 7 in the voice. There's even one little silly part. Well, I'm going to get a cup of coffee, and then one last chord they all play together. I think it's like an F sharp 7 sharp 9 or something like that. But that is the whole song. I think the chords are absolutely crazy. I listened to the song hundreds of times before I realized how much depth the chord progression here has. So you can download this chart below and follow it along. And please do come and join my Patreon. That's the best way to support my channel. It gives me some meaningful financial assistance to keep my work here going, whereas watching this video gives like 0.0001 cent per view or something like that, which is helpful, but come join for some exclusive learning on my Patreon, High Castle Conservatory. The last thing I want to get into here is perhaps the lyrics. All right, so let's get into the lyrics for just a little bit. I really don't fully know what this song is about. It's very abstract in a certain way, so I'm not going to really get too much into interpreting it, but let me just get a little bit into it here. The lyrics say, as the congregation grows, the lung of solitude deflates. To my ears, the greatest sin, feel a bit like Beethoven. Simultaneous, they speak unbeknownst, exiled to the inner voice. Difference is he had no choice. If you go through, we know this is Sleep Part 1. There's something very sensory about this whole thing, about hearing and listening versus hearing. There seems to be a general, remark about perhaps the ignorance of general society and the masses and things like that, and not hearing the inner meaning or just listening and quieting down. There's so much noise, and the song is actually full of noise, so we can't seem to find the air to get our message through your heads. Poor respiration is sure to keep clear communication obscure, as if I should care, as if you're listening out there. The louder you speak, the more I can hear, the less I can understand. Pound on it, pound it in. To my ears, the greatest sin, feel a bit like Beethoven. Obviously, Beethoven was deaf, so more of a hearing type of thing going on. Paint my lungs so silently, the darkest color of your noise. A crowd will contradict its own audibility. Can't hear the dialogue for the voice. No one is listening, yet ears are ringing. So I don't know if that has to do with like loud concerts. I'm probably being too literal there, but you have the bigger crowds growing, the less they understand something subtle, something artistic, or to get the even close to the inner meaning of it. And it says, in the morning I will see what you were trying to say to me as I respond into the sink, need not again hear myself think. Then it says, ears are ringing, and wax within my ears is grown, just like the snot inside my nose, my interpretation of distorted conversation. And then at the end it says, I will kill for isolation, sacrifice the energy, to enjoy the breath of silence when the blood comes naturally. It's pretty dark. The narrator, whoever it is, just seems very withdrawn and disconnected from society and the masses. And it says, I have chosen to plug my nose before the threshold of pain is grown, mull out from society, survive off my soliloquy. Removed I can speak as he has. Something like that. Bleeding from nose, throat, and ears. Well, maybe the narrator's dying or something. My interpretation is seriously lacking. Sometimes I like to go to Song Meanings, which is a cool website where people can put their own interpretations and the best answers get voted up to the top. So 14 years ago, Diamond Shade gave a take at this, and it's the top one on Song Meanings, and I like some of the things he's getting at here. Diamond Shade says, this song seems to me to have a bit more depth to it than most people have granted it. It's obviously not about an actual hearing disorder. Frustration with the general public is on the right track, but think more along the lines of growing insanity to catch the full impact of the song's message. Imagine someone just babbling back to you what they think what you said is all about. Now imagine every person you have ever interacted with chiming in with their thoughts on what you said, what you've done, whatever. Most people are so quick to interpret what they hear that they never actually listen to it. As the cacophony steadily grows, it's easy to imagine someone getting overwhelmed by everyone putting their 2 cents in on something that they never really paid attention to in the first place. For reference, check out Merriam-Webster's take on the word soliloquy. Its definition says, the act of talking to oneself, or second definition, a dramatic monologue that represents a series of unspoken reflections. Basically, the song speaks of someone who, after hearing everyone get it wrong, would rather just listen to their own thoughts. If you really pay attention to what the lyrics are trying to say, you can almost see the speaker in a padded room wearing a straitjacket and constantly talking to himself. Personally, I believe the song is a true work of art in more ways than one. Prose, social commentary, musicianship, you name it. Definitely Mr. Bungle's finest hour. So yeah, I'm pretty sure Trevor wrote the entire song, including the lyrics, and it really does take on this multiple. You could think of it just in terms of music. The audience isn't really listening to the music. They just like that Mr. Bungle's doing crazy stuff. But it's much more expansive than that, like Diamond Shade is getting at. So I don't have much more to add than that. You can just read through the lyrics and make your own conclusions, because there's a lot there to work with. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and please subscribe below and join my Patreon, High Castle Conservatory. Thanks a lot for watching this video and taking an interest in my channel. Please help me reach a larger audience by hitting subscribe below and ringing the notification bell. Check out my video playlist page to find the categories that most interest you. Leave me a super thanks here on YouTube, and even better, come join my Patreon. Please consider buying music for my original projects I.S.S. and High Castle Teleorchestra. Also, don't forget to sign up for my email list on the front page of timsmolens.com. You can find information about all of those things in the description below. Thanks again.